Back to the show in these late winter days without the leaves on the trees. It is a lot easier to spot birds flying around.
That is true. Now, many of our birds have deep connections to our mythology and folklore. And here to tell us a little more about them is our resident folklorist, Shane Lahan. Shane, great to have you with us and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Belated.
Happy New Year.
That's like, I got a great present over Christmas, okay? Something I'd recommend to everyone. It's called Bird Buddy, right? And I got it from Maura's son and daughter.
Yeah.
And you know what it is? It's a feeder, and it's got a little camera on it, and every time a little bird arrives on the feeder, it sends a little photograph. Look, here's my robin, for example.
Sure, I never knew there was such a thing until I was reading in the notes.
Absolutely magic. So I'm delighted Debbie and BJ gave me that lovely present, and every day on my phone I have a little green finch, or I have a chaffinch, or I have a...
You can see them so close up,
so
Shane.
close up, and it tells you all about them. But so I'm mad about the birds. I've always been mad about
Same
birds.
here.
But the bird I want to talk about today is a little bit different, because when I'm driving home, I'm lucky, I live out the countryside.
Yeah.
There's a river across the road from me, there's a stream. And as I'm going, I have my head cocked up, because I'm looking for the heron. And when I see the heron sitting on a rock right beside the river, okay, or standing on the rock right beside the river, I'm absolutely enthralled, and it makes my day.
They're so motionless, though, aren't they, for ages?
They're so motionless, and they're special. They're majestic. They're standing there. Sometimes they fly, right?
Yeah.
And the road that I'm going home on has trees all around, okay, and their wingspan is out. You know, absolutely 6 feet,
Like a dragon.
like almost like something from a dinosaur.
Yeah, they're prehistoric looking. You're right, actually.
Unbelievable to look at, and they have to wait for a break in the trees, as it were, to head off, as it were, you know, and go on a branch or anything of that sort. So for me, the heron is something very special.
It's a big bird too, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah.
And you were giving me some lovely names. Tell me what you was called.
Mauda Ada, which would be Long Mary.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's.
yeah.
I've never heard of another name for it, for the heron myself.
We had, my father used to call him Donny Struggle, but then Donny.
Long neck Donny.
Long neck Donny, but then I heard...
What's Donny mean?
Donald.
Oh, right,
Donald,
okay.
yeah, and then there was Joni then as well. There was another one,
female
Joni
one.
Struggle, yeah, so it might be male and female.
Joni the Bog, or Molly the Bog, or Sheelan Portock was also a name, and there are names all over the country for them. But in Irish, they're Cur Éisc, right?
Cur Éisc.
Cur Éisc. And it could be either Éisc in terms of fish,
yeah.
or it could be Réasc in terms of a bog or a bogland, and so on. Yeah. So what you had was, but Cur was something long and pointed. And this is really what it's all about. The heron, okay, now we have two birds, and you were mentioning earlier, we have the crane and the heron.
Do we still have cranes, though, Shane?
No, cranes are extinct throughout the British Isles.
Yeah,
okay?
these
we
are
don't
cranes,
have them anymore. No,
Just very like an ostrich.
yeah, and the difference between the two of them, the black and white neck, can you see? And what would happen is that the crane is a vegetarian, okay, and they're migratory birds. They come and
I always associate cranes with like places like China, and you always see them on all the Oriental tapestries and all that.
Right. And they're found right throughout the world. Not so much here anymore. They're extinct, okay, in Ireland. But the heron and the crane go by the same word in Irish, the Cur Éisc, okay, or the Cur.
So they're same family of types.
Yeah, they're same family, except the heron, of course, eats everything like mice and frogs and meat of all sorts, and fish in particular, and all of those things. And they're particularly interesting because one of the things I love is that in the old Irish tales, there is a number of things about this Cur Éisc that we have. But there's a thing called Cur Gwine. And the Cur Gwine was a kind of a curse that you gave people. Now, to translate it, it literally meant the sorcerer, or the curse of the sorcerer, okay, or the point of the sorcerer, okay?
Right.
And in O'Daveran's glossary, a very old Irish text, they tell us that when people had a dispute with someone long ago, one of the things they used to do, I'm going to stand up now if you don't mind, they used to stand up, right? And they would stand outside someone's door, right, from morning to evening, and they wouldn't eat anything for the full period of time from the dawn until the dusk. There was kind of an Irish hunger strike, as it were. But if you wanted to really get at someone, you had to take the stance of the heron. And the way they did that, right, was that first of all, you had to stand on one leg like the heron. Make sure now I don't fall over, okay? On top of that, they close one eye and they would put their head out, and their arm was supposedly just like the heron, and they'd let loose on someone then, okay?
Would they say anything or anything?
Well, they would. The curses would come out.
While they were in the stance.
And then when you were in that stance, you were able to curse somebody in that sort of way.
Yeah.
And I love that sort of idea that the heron and the stance of the heron, and when you think about it, really, you know, the point that they had was important. the herons were pets and the cranes were pets, okay? They were kept, yeah. And you could actually, the crane was a particularly good pet when the cranes were there, okay? You could rear them, and they were a bit stupid if you got them from an egg upwards, the crane would follow you around.
Yeah.
The heron likewise was a very good pet, except he wasn't very good for, he wasn't particularly good for the other pets in the house. So if you would, dogs or cats or puppies or anything
wouldn't
like
get on
that,
with them.
he got rid of those. But the heron on his own was a great pet.
Is there, there are so many different names said like Maud, Adda and Donny
Maybe
because
it is,
they were a
though,
pet?
yeah.
I imagine it could well have been, but they used to actually raise them as well for the table, believe it or not, okay? So this is interesting. But the Irish never did that. So it was only when the Anglo-Normans in the 12th century came to Ireland, okay? They're the ones who were raising them in captivity and so on.
To eat.
To eat, yeah. But they were very fishy and so on in terms of their flavour.
Yeah.
But when Geraldus Cambrensis, when he comes to Ireland, Gerald of Wales, coming with the Anglo-Normans, he says that the Irish were invited for a big feast. The herons were put out, but the Irish lads wouldn't eat it at all.
No.
Because they thought the heron was from the other world as well. They didn't want
Sacred.
to eat sacred.
Pishroge and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
But if you look at the heron for me for a second, okay, I love the view of it, the look of it. It's almost like they're wearing a big cloak on them, and on top of that they have their plume going back,
the tiny feathery thing,
going back from their head. There's a nobility about them. There's something very special when you come.
Their eyes are very special, Shane, aren't they? The eyes.
The eyes are amazing. I know I did a bit of research on the heron. They're great at fishing, and one of the reasons they're great at fishing is that their eyes actually have a telescopic macro ability. They have lenses that move in and out, okay, and that's really amazing. On top of that, they can see a spectrum of light that you and I can't see, okay? They're into ultraviolet and all of that, and they can compensate for the refraction in the water, you know, the depth that's there. So when they see a fish, and this is amazing, you know, their necks are a particular shape. I'll tell you about their necks in a second, how they got that shape. But their necks are like a coiled spring. And when they go down to fish, they hit the fish, okay? They kill it. They don't so much grab it, but they hit it with such ferocity.
They knock it out now.
They knock it out, and that's how they get their fish.
They're very like the gannet, so are they?
Because
the gannet, that's where the gannet feeds itself.
The gannet comes down.
Goes straight into the water, yeah.
But there's a lovely story about how the heron has a different neck. The crane, as you were saying, has a straight neck.
because they fly straight. That's the difference.
And they're like a swan. They have their neck out in front of them. If you watch the heron flying, the heron has its neck
Like an
looped
S,
around like an S shape. And there's an old story that's told. It says one day there was the fox was going along and he saw a few pigeons up on a tree, and he said to the pigeons, he said, "Throw me down a few chicks there for my dinner," he said, you know, "or else I'll fly up and eat them all." And the pigeons weren't that wise at all. They were throwing down little chicks to the fox every day as he was going by. And anyway, the heron saw this going on, and the heron came up and said, "Listen, foxes can't fly at all. Don't be bothered putting down any more chicks to that fox." So anyway, the fox came on the next day. He says, "Come on, send me down my dinner." And they said, "No, we're not giving you anything." "Who told you I can't fly?" "The heron," they told them. So the fox said, "I'll get my revenge." So the heron was standing one day by the waterside, and of course the fox went over full of plough moss altogether. He says, "Oh, you are a marvellous bird. Look at your lovely long neck. Tell us, how do you know when the weather is going good?" "Oh, I fly up the river," says the heron. "And when the weather is bad, I fly down the river." "And how do you know?" He says, "I can smell the rain." And he says, "Show me how you do it." And out went the heron with its long neck, showing it how he's smelling the rain. And what happens? The fox comes along with a stick and whacks him. And ever since, you get this S shape on the heron's neck. And that's the story as to how they got what's there.
The wily fox.
But you know what? People believed in the past that the heron were such good at fishing, because they believed that they had something in them. And we know that the heron has a special comb on one of its claws, and it has special feathers, downy feathers, that it breaks into a powder, and that keeps it watertight, as it were. But the fishermen long ago, believed that was what was attracting the fish that were there. And lots of fishermen used to keep a claw of the herring with them, and they used to. But another thing they used to do is they used to boil down the herons, I should say. They used to boil them down, and when an oil used to come out of them, and they used to use that to put onto their bait, onto their fishing lines, and all of those things. They believed that they had this extra quality.
Magical almost.
magical
Yeah.
office. But there was people used to often hang the heron upside down, and they'd wait for the oil to come out its mouth. There was another gang that used to put the heron into the dung heap, and they used to have a little pot underneath, and that special oil was used for rheumatism. It was used for burns.
Kind of fermented or something then, was it?
It was a kind of a jelly that
Yeah,
used to
yeah.
come
So when
out.
the oil came out, it was kind of through their plumage, was
Yeah,
it?
it came out through their mouth. Okay,
Yeah,
that was
so it was-
that was the way it was.
And what was the oil? It was just...
it was heron oil, and people still in the folklore record. There's people looking for hair. All the fishermen are looking for heron oil. That was
Yeah.
one of
isn't it?
the most amazing conservative things that was there. And you would also, of course, there are other birds that are associated with the heron. One I always love from the poem from Cathal Bui, Maciel Gunna's great poem, the Bonan Bui.
On
And the
Bonan Bui,
Bonan-
yeah,
and
yeah.
Bonan Bui is that great kind of lament for the fellow. He sees the dead bittern, the yellow bittern out, who died of thirst, as it were. And of course,
Oh yeah, the bittern, that other bird that's extinct as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Cathal Bui was a good man for the jar himself,
Yeah.
and he kind of used it as an excuse to say, I'll take a drink.
It's also the pub in Killinascully on Bonan Bui.
That's it, the Bonan Bui.
Bonan Bui.
What was interesting about the Bonan Bui, and I always loved the name of it, it comes from the Latin boatum tori, meaning a bull's roar. And the bull's roar it's a fair, and if you listen to
Is this an actual sound
the actual
of
sound.
the bird?
And people long ago, when they heard this, right, they thought this was otherworldly as well.
It's like
And
a drum.
Yeah, and the heron was a little. They're all related. The egret, the Bonan Bui, the bittern.
The bittern are, they're in the UK now, I think, back, yeah.
And what was interesting about them is that people thought they were otherworldly. And I often think about the heron when I see the heron, and the heron has a bit of a squawk as well.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the banshee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I think about, and when the heron, if a heron flew up over your head, it's very easy to imagine. So there you are, that kind of squawking that goes by.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you hear that at night a
Your
lot.
road, of course, like, yeah.
There are two of them now right in front of our house, because our house at home on the island, you've got the Craig.
You'd have them on the island.
Oh yeah, loads, yeah, but they're down, they've moved and they're down below, they're nesting down below there. And they're actually one of the earliest nesters, are they, Shane?
They are, see, and they have what I love about them is they kind of get ready early on, particularly for the fishing, and they have a lovely tradition. And you can see them. They have a mating ritual every year. The female holds a stick in its beak, and if the male is going to come along, it takes the stick and they begin to build the nest together. It's some of the earliest. So many of the other birds.
very dramatic.
Isn't that lovely,
It
though?
is. And they have a mating ritual, like lots of the birds, where they clack their beaks together, okay? And you can hear that from miles around as well, you know?
Is that sound? That's
I-
interesting.
Yeah, about it, yeah.
Go. Anyway, I'm soft on the good heart.
But there's something interesting. I love their plume at the back,
Yeah.
I love their crest that's there. And there's another bird related to them other than the Bonan Bui, and that's the egret, okay?
Oh, they're lovely, those little white
and
birds.
egrets are these small little
yes,
white
They're
birds.
so pretty. They're small.
And they were extinct in Ireland up to very recently, and there's a reason for that. And the reason for it is that up on top of their heads, okay, they have a lovely feather.
Yeah.
And during the Victorian era, they were all overkilled because people wanted
To make this-
the fascinators, as you would call them, on top of
Put a feather in their hat.
and the feather in their hat, and that's one of the reasons that they're
God,
no
they were
longer
killed
around.
for a few feathers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God,
Amazing.
Shane Gurmahagad.
No,
Shane,
no,
thank you
Barbara,
so
Oh,
much.
Scialta all in a
And
fantastic
it's a lovely
story.
time. And Shane, you were saying that they're starting to gather now for their nests, which is
are,
lovely, so
they
you can
are.
see them.
Just, and everyone that sees a heron, I think you're blessed when you see them
Yeah.
because there's something, and they bring good luck, and
Well, I
that's
tell
what
you,
I'd say.
there was one just down the road from our house at home, and there's one just down the road from the house we're in at the moment.
Yeah, because they can be near rivers as
Real
well,
near
can't
the
they?
rivers.
You were
both
used
times.
to them growing up
Yeah,
from the sea,
always
though.
used
If
to
they,
them.
if they land in the house, Dahi, good luck. If a feather comes off them, money coming your way.
Lovely stuff.
So I'll be pulling the feathers off them.
I'm not coming to work next week. I'll be waiting for the heron to come. Thank you very much, Shane.
Really, Shane,
Always
thanks so
great to
much.
have you. Derek Mooney will be here next Tuesday as well, and